if we had all the power in the world, so at least maybe just at Facebook and at LinkedIn, and if you can build your ideal design team, what would that look like?
Well, mine would kind of go in line with my, my 12-step UX process, my ideal UX process, pretty much all the 12 things I feel like I need to do for most projects.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the positions that kind of like, work best together, in my opinion, to actually pull that off. In terms of designers themselves, the UX team, I'm considering all the positions, that I've come across and, throughout my time in different companies. So these are all my favorites. If I don't include your position, I'm sorry. I just don't need you. No, I'm joking. But yeah, these are all my favorites. So in terms of just core designers, and oftentimes we live in a world where we have like, these generalist designers, like product designers that do a little bit of everything. But like at YouTube, I loved, having designers that had specialties, even if we could do everything, we had specialties. And sometimes we worked in a segmented role where we'd have multiple designers on one thing, but focusing on their specialty. Because, there's a value in that,
Sure.
You can, do a lot of different things like, semi well, or you can, do one or two things like extraordinarily well. And, there's room for both of that in different types of teams and processes. But I love having those specialists. So for designers, I'd say an interaction designer, no bias, because that's my bread and butter. A visual designer, and I kind of lump that together with like a production designer as well. Because one thing I loved at YouTube is that we had production designers that like, you don't have to like, craft every single, pixel to perfection. But like when you're ready to actually ship, you have these production designers that come in and actually like perfect everything, get all the reds right and get everything, every single thing perfect for release. I even had one guy who he like literally tweaked the color of my YouTube red for TV, because TV in most cases casts this weird like thing with the colors, and technically YouTube red on TV was like more of an orange, and it's like it's very interesting little things. People who just literally have that degree of detail in their minds all the time. So that having a information architect or strategist on board and having a motion designer is like super ideal, because like no one has motion designers. I've only worked at one company that's had motion designers, and like, sometimes you want to do some amazing, like, effect for like your onboarding screen or just different effects within the app that require motion, and having someone who like specializes in that on board rather than me like wasting way too much time in like, Premiere and like After Effects is incredible. Now, in terms of like other positions that I love, researcher, UX engineer is probably like, the secret sauce of like, a great UX team, in my opinion, like having a UX engineer on board, because like this is a person who is like the in between design and engineering, but like has that passion for the design and has that like, attention to detail that sometimes you don't find with engineers, who actually like, just really cares about this stuff a whole lot. And sometimes it's very helpful to have one of those people on your team, on your UX team, because they're like, they have that vested interest with you to actually build something and test it out and see how it works before it actually goes into full out production mode. It makes a huge difference. It's controversial in some teams, honestly, it's a little bit controversial at Facebook. But where, there's generally two camps, the ones who are for that and ones who are vastly against it. And the reasons that some people are against is that it's like, it can be awkward, depending on how engineers look at it. I once heard the defense, like, how would you feel if like, engineers had like a, a designer on their, on their team, like, doing the opposite type of thing. So I can see that in that sense. But if you're viewing this as just like a, for the product and all about the product and whatnot, and not about like, politics within teams and groups, it's perfect. It's absolutely incredible to have somebody that you can work with all the time, helping to build products in a way that, prototypes just don't, UX driven prototypes just don't do it justice, or they're faster at it, or can get more of an realistic, output of what you're thinking. Content strategy / UX writing, I love having a content strategist, on board. Like, it's absolutely incredible. It's like the best thing ever.
Every team should have one.
Yeah, huge. I totally agree. And it's weird because I never had any sort of person like that on my team until I arrived at Autodesk. Briefly, we had a content strategist, and then he left shortly after I joined the team, and we didn't really replace him. And then at Google, there's tons of them under the veil of UX writing. And then the last one, product specialists, which pretty much they vie for the product, they vie for on behalf of people. They kind of do QA as well. They're just like a great role to work with to actually get everything done. And validate all of your hypothesis and and just tie everything together. It's just like so many different aspects of the process that helps with.
Is there a difference between a product specialist and a product manager for the audience, just in case?
Yeah, majorly. The product manager is very different in that they're product manager is managing the overall product as a whole, whereas the product specialist is just pretty much like coming in and giving like the user input and just vying on behalf of the user more so than the product manager tends to be doing.
Awesome.
I view the product manager as more of the person who's the advocate for the company, whereas the product specialist being the person who's more of the advocate for the user.
Awesome.
And so that's the biggest dichotomy I see there, and highly important, obviously, for a user experience designer to have a product specialist on board. Now, oftentimes those people aren't literally on the UX team.
Right.
I've seen it happen sometimes. So, that's the, that's a little one in between there. Oh, and one other major important one that I missed, the UX producer. That's a role that I haven't, I don't think we have any of those at Facebook actually, but they're great. They kind of like have more of a a project manager type of vibe to them, and that they're just like arranging and whatnot. And,
Yes.
and doing those, liaison types of work with, putting people in the right projects and,
Right.
and handling resources and all of that. Another thing that's incredibly helpful, especially for step one of my process.
All right, cool. So for me, my ideal design team. So my ideal design team will be a little bit different from John's. I think John had literally every design title.
Not everyone, but all my favorite ones.
And I'll switch it off a little bit. So I'll take one step back in the sense that I'm one of those people who truly believes anyone in this world can design. So assuming that I'm building my ideal design team, it doesn't necessarily mean that they would have a design title of any kind. So for me, all right, let's start with this one. I'm a big person who believes in like vision. So like I really need someone on my team who has like a clear vision of like of where this product or this problem is going. I want them to be able to have like this magic wand and everything goes well in their mind and everything's pitch perfect and they have like this clear vision and a mission. So that's one of my.
Are they like a functioning designer, or are you thinking like a design manager of some sort?
Ideally, this person is a product manager. It's a product manager who has like a clear vision with a clear mission for everyone to follow along. And so that's one of the most important
so is
ideal
this a person
person.
working on your UX team, or is this like
Yeah,
a world
on
where
my
product
UX
and
team.
UX is the same team?
Yeah, for me, I look at it in the sense that everyone's a designer. Everyone who's working on this product is a designer in my mind. Even in engineers and whoever, like no matter what their title is, if they're working on this product or this problem that we're trying to solve, there's some design that needs to be happening, right? And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So yeah, this product manager, ideally who has this vision and mission in mind, also has like an engineering background.
Sounds like you need to be working at Google, man. It's like all the product managers there.
I like product managers who have either a design background or an engineer background, because they just bring something different to the table. They empathize with the team a little bit more. So I really love that. So in my ideal design team, there's a product manager with an engineering background who also embraces design. And what that means to me is that they're a champion for the users, right? So that's one. The second person is an engineer who's going to handle more of the technical thing in this product or in this problem that we're solving. But this engineer has to have one specific skill, and that skill needs to be to draw squares, circles, and stick figures. And what I mean by that is this person needs to be comfortable enough to be in a room setting with this team, with my ideal team, and be able to draw a circle, a square, and stick figures to communicate some sort of like idea or brainstorm something with the team.
Are you thinking like a UX engineer? Or just like a full out engineer that's
yeah,
on board?
it
is this
doesn't
a role that you've seen in play, or is this like one that you're like kind of envisioning?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a UX engineer. It could be any kind of engineer. It just has to be someone that has a more technical background than everyone else in the room.
Gotcha.
But they need to be embracing the circles and the squares and the
Yeah.
stick figures just means to me that they're not afraid to draw something bad as long as it communicates the idea. They shouldn't be afraid to sketch and communicate and brainstorm. So,
Gotcha.
it doesn't have to be UX focused.
And does this person like live throughout the entire like phase of the product, or is this like someone for the earlier visioning days?
I want them involved early. So one thing I do with my team is I try to get the engineers up, become a part of the early stages of the product that we're building. I want them to know, this is what we're thinking. What do you think? Do you want to draw a box on this UI too? Like, go for it. The earlier they're involved, the more I've noticed they're just more engaged in the product, right? And to be honest, at that point, if I can get that, I'm good.
Yeah.
I agree that I think now, especially, like, I'm truly starting to see the value in a UX writer, or a content writer, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
It's huge, man, because, everything we design, especially right now in software and UI, everything's words.
Yeah.
So if you take out all the words and all the letters and all the type that we see on our screens, whether it's phone or mobile, there's nothing there anymore. So it's just such a great skill, and I love that it's becoming hot right now that we're talking about it.
Especially for filling in, for even going beyond UX writing, for filling in some of these like voids that have existed with the lack of like information architects in the industry anymore. Like, one big thing that I love about the content strategists at Facebook is they're like in between they're a combination of a UX writer and like an information architect.
I think you and I have had this conversation where I feel that, and I think you feel this way too, that information architecture is such a unique skill in itself.
Yeah.
And to have that combo of an information architecture, specialist with a UX writing capability is pretty dope.
Yeah, I totally agree.
All right, so that does it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. We'd love to hear what your ideal design team looks like or sounds like. If you want to reach out to John and I, please go to angelocamachogroup.com, and we'll talk to you next week. Cheers.